Okay, and welcome. We're now live on YouTube as well as the Zoom webinar. So we're going to give it a couple of minutes for the room to fill up. I hope wherever you are, you're well. And hopefully you might learn a couple of new things today. Yeah, it's filling up nicely now. So we'll just give it another minute, guys, just for it to fill up while I sip my fake Red Bull. Okay, so yeah, I think we're okay to go now. So welcome wherever you are. So the purpose of today is to go over some of the thermal screening solutions that we can offer via Hikvision. The one I'll probably focus on most, or the one we are going to focus on most, is the thermal camera with the Blackbody calibrator and how you can use software or app notifications and how to set and position the camera up, really. So for those of you that you've probably all seen the different types of various thermal screening solutions out there on the market, and essentially many of them do the same thing. There's a mass screening solution to offer a quick and easy way to detect higher than normal skin temperature, which could be an indicator that somebody could be unwell, and then you can implement second, third line testing, etc. So it's a sort of a mass screening solution, touch-free, quite safe to deploy, as in you're not touching anybody, but you do have to give this some consideration of whether it's right for your customer or your application, which we'll go through shortly, and whether this is or isn't appropriate. I'm on my own today, so unfortunately Reese hasn't been able to join me, but if you've got any questions or you'd like any of the information that we share on this, please email webinar@dvs.co.uk, where we'll be able to help you. If you are a customer looking to buy, please contact your DVS sales rep, or if you are an end user, we're happy to put you in contact with somebody in your area that can assist you. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen quickly. Make sure I share the right one this time. So hopefully you'll be able to see, I can't even speak today. Hopefully you can see my screen nicely. So the premise of this solution is, I'm just going to live view. I'm using a cube camera to sort of show the setup of the system, because obviously you guys are remote, I'm here. So in front of me, you can see over here, we've got the camera that's mounted on a tripod. So depending on the lens size, we offer 2 lens sizes and 2 form factors. So there's the bullet camera, which I have here, which is the most popular. It's probably the most versatile and easy to adjust and fit. We offer the turret camera. Now, both are available in 2 lens sizes, 3mm and 6mm, and 6mm is currently the most popular because it offers the longer range detection distance over the 3mm. So the detection range is 2.5 to 3 meters on the 6mm, which is the most popular because it lends itself typically to that kind of environment where somebody coming into a building can come in, wait, and go past the camera, whereas the 1.5 meters on average distance of the 3mm might not be long enough. But we do have customers that use both. I do have a document that outlines this that I can send you later. So basically, you can see on the left-hand side, we've got the camera. It's a dual lens camera. So it's a built-in thermal camera with a 4 megapixel day-night camera. And it also has the flashing light along with the audio announcement on there. So if somebody is detected, and there are 2 audible warnings, one for abnormal temperature. So the camera will speak to you and say abnormal temperature detected. Therefore, the person can hopefully self-isolate themselves and get secondary testing, or there could be a guard or a group of people that receive a notification that can go and head that off quickly. The flashing light is also meant to draw attention. So when it flashes, you look at the camera so you get a better facial shot of who that person may be. So it's a double audible and light warning. Now, the black box calibrator on the right-hand side is a way that we calibrate or keep a constant temperature in the field of view of the thermal camera to give us a very accurate temperature reading. So without the black box calibrator, the temperature accuracy is 0.5 degrees. Now, some manufacturers out there also can claim that without a black box calibrator, some cannot. Some people are using it without a black box calibrator at the 0.5 degrees accuracy. It is down to you, and it is a cost-effective offering if you do that. But we would recommend for the accuracy, the 0.3 degrees with a black box calibrator is used, and it will give you obviously a higher accuracy, 0.3, and it will stabilize that reading because it gives a constant reading in the field of view. And we'll show you that quick setup when we go through the menu of the thermal camera. Now, again, mounted on a tripod within the distance, there's distances that you have to adhere to, which can be found in the documentation. And the black box calibrator, you really want to position it so it's out of field of view of the detection area. So you'll see there's a blue detection area within the camera. We position the thermal camera outside of that and tell the camera where to look for its calibration source. They're also set to 40 degrees. So for those of you that are using a black box calibrator, it is in the documentation, but we set that black box calibrator to 40 degrees constant, okay? Right, okay, moving on. So that's the typical setup there. So you can see I'd come through the door. I know it's a demonstration area, but it lends itself typically to what a normal scenario would be. So I come through the door, up to the camera, directly on. So the better the line is presented, or you can come into the camera face on, that is how we want it to be presented. And then it'll read your skin surface temperature of your face. It's got the facial detection algorithm, so we're capturing faces only. And it will also report back that temperature if it's abnormal. It also does mask detection. So if we get into a situation where either the government decide that you have to wear a mask to go back to work, or you decide for health and safety that masks should be deployed. Now, everyone's got their own idea whether they're good or bad, but then we can report that if you want. Our solution will say audibly whether you have a mask or don't have a mask, and it will also report that within the software tool. So two extra things that we can do there. Now, a new firmware came out last night for this. Now, the voice has been changed to an English voice. It was sort of robotic Chinese, I guess is the best way to describe it. It's now been changed back to an English voice, and I can demonstrate that quickly in a minute. But that's the kind of typical setup. Some people are using tripods. Some people are fitting these to a wall or a ceiling, getting inventive for how they do it. As long as they meet the installation parameters, you can install that how you like. The tripod just makes it very easy to sort of deploy rapidly and then move around the premises if you need to, whereas a fixed location will always be there. But again, entirely up to you and your customer. So that is the sort of typical setup. What we'll move on to now is the actual thermal camera. But quickly, if I show you in here, just expand this. So we've got here a configuration guide, which I've opened down here. So those of you that want this, it is a configuration guide that shows you how to configure the camera through the web browser and the suggested distances, etc. So again, webinar.dvs.co.uk, and I will send that over. But what I show you today should summarize this in a video content format. Okay, so we've also got some other stuff. So emissivity values, for those of you that don't know, emissivity is this. These are the common emissivity references. So you need to input that in the camera interface. Again, this is quite handy. So if you're using it in a VCA situation where you're using thermal cameras out, not for temperature screening, then you can set the thermal emissivity of objects, and those are the most common ones. You can Google it and find them, but it is key that you use the correct emissivity value to get the accurate readings, okay? Most people don't even know what emissivity is. We also do a couple of other solutions. So just quickly show you, we do the metal detector solution. So a metal detector with a built-in thermal on the screen. So again, you can incorporate both. The good thing with this solution is you can actually put tensor barriers or cones, etc., or be inventive and funnel the traffic through this. So not only do they get detected for metal, but you can turn that off. You're also screening each individual as well on their temperature as they go through. So that becomes quite a nice little unit, and we have some of these deployed in the UK. So it's a two-in-one solution. Okay, so we're going to go back into the camera. Back here. So as you can see, we're in the camera now. So if I just press play on this, you'll see the two views. Like I said, it is a bispectrum camera. So you get 4 megapixel day-night camera along with the thermal camera in the field of view. You can see the blue box here. The thermal image is a more zoomed in image than the day-night camera. So for those of you that ask every time you get these out of the box, I generally get a question probably once a day of why the thermal view doesn't match. The lens sizes are different on the thermal and the day-night. So you'll see the blue box here is our detection area. So any face that appears in this detection area, this is the 3mm lens, by the way, for those of you that want to know. Any face that appears in this blue detection area will be detected, and you can see that mimicked on top of the day-night camera. So you can see the differences in lens sizes there, but it is a 2-for-1. So if you add this to a I-series or K-series or turbo DVR, it will take up 2 channels if you want to put the both channels and record them on there. Many people are using this standalone. The camera is capable of doing a push notification to HiConnect app directly from the camera, as long as it has internet access. It can also send an email with 2 images, so you'll get the day-night and the thermal with the temperature ingrained on there, also sent to your email directly from the camera, or you can use it as with an NVR and our software. So it depends on how simple or how complex you really want to make this solution. but it is usable just as the camera itself. Okay, so you can see there when I'm looking at the black box calibrator is on the left, just out of field of view of the detection area, and you can see that red sort of area indicates that's where the constant temperature is being generated. So out of the detection area, not in the field of view. So as people come through this, they're not blocked. Their head doesn't block the calibration unit, and therefore potentially giving an inaccurate read. So moving on to configuration, if I go into the configuration tab, like I said, last night they did release a new firmware, which encapsulated a better English speaking voice. So you can see that's the model number, and that is the latest firmware if you want to upgrade it. If you do want to find the firmware for our NVRs, cameras, etc., if you just go to the Europe portal, Hikvision Europe portal, and again, apologies if you all know this, but for those that are watching, it may be helpful. Portal UK, portal, product firmware. There's a dedicated folder for temperature screening. Now in here we have all of our firmware, so temperature screening, camera firmware. So again, for our handhelds and our statics, and you can see all of this firmware in there. The latest one there is the one that I've installed today, but you've also got the software as well, and firmware for the Deep in Mind and the iSeries. Now the iSeries firmware is customized, so if you install the iSeries firmware, it gives the temperature reading interface live on the GUI, so the customer can see what the temperature of the detected person is, as well as a green box around if they're okay, and a red box for temperature alarms. It's very visual, and that's a dedicated firmware for the iSeries, not the K series. We also have firmware for the Deep in Mind unit. I have a small video to show you how that works, but it also does mask detection as well as temperature detection with audible output, so it has pre-recorded voice messages. I have a small video I will show you at the end that shows that functionality. It's very difficult to show the local GUI via a webinar, so we'll show that right at the end, as well as our software, which I will show you as well. So all encapsulated in one area, so you can always go there to get the latest information. Okay, so moving on. What you need to do is first set the temperature measurement. So in the UK, it's degree C. So we're just going to use that degree C measurement. That's the default in the UK. If you're used to the Hikvision web browser functionality, then obviously I'm teaching off the suck eggs probably, but again, it may be useful for you to learn. Under maintenance, the VCA resource type, temperature screening is selected by default, and that's the one that you need to use. If you select temperature measurement, it won't be accurate. We also can't change this unit to a VCA camera for intrusion, line crossing, etc. That's not supported in this model. It's dedicated for temperature screening, okay? So default out of the box, temperature screening is selected. So we try to make as many settings as possible there for you when you turn this product on, and it therefore decreases the installation and setup time. So it can be literally deployed in minutes. If you're good with a tripod and a screwdriver and some cable ties, you can literally deploy this in minutes. It'll take you longer to drink your cup of tea, to be honest. Okay, so VCA resource temperature screening. And again, these sort of settings are specific to the application. We'll move on. If you do want to use the Hike Connect and email, obviously you need to set the IP address, gateway, preferred DNS, etc. And if you are going to use email functionality, you set it there. So it's very easy to set that email functionality from there. Platform access, that's our Hike Connect application, free to download from our website, Hikvision's website or the App Store. And again, it'll push notification either through the NVR or through the camera directly to there. So a group of people can receive this alarm and then act accordingly. So it becomes quite a powerful system. If you're using the IDS Deep in Mind NVR, you can also use the camera with the facial recognition technology that's built in, and that gives like sort of a traceability record. So if somebody is detected and alarmed, you can actually look historically for footage to see how many times they've come into building, what days. So it may help build up a report if you need to of where the person's movement was within the building. And again, the IDS NVR can support up to 8 channels, so you could have that through the building for facial recognition of 8 channels. Okay, just a little helpful tip. So platform access there we've enabled, and we'll show you shortly. And an integration protocol, if you're using it with like third-party systems or your own SDK or system that you built, then you need to enable them and do that, as well as HTTP listening that many people won't use on this specific call. Video and audio, again, the camera is 4 megapixel day night, and I've just set the appropriate settings, or it's a low res thermal. So I've just turned up the 720p because it lets you to give you the best sort of image you can, but it is a low res thermal imaging product. And metadata, again, you can't turn that on. So if you get this error message. Quite a few people say it doesn't let you turn it on. You're correct, it doesn't. In this thermal screening mode, you don't enable that metadata setting. Under image, apart from the obvious day-night settings, WDR, etc. for the camera, and again, each camera has its own adjustable setting. So whether it's the day-night camera or the thermal camera, so you've got the dead pixel correction, etc. And you've got the palette. So I set mine to white hot. That's how I prefer it. Everyone's got a different sort of take on this. What is their customer preference? A lot of people use rainbow. Not really my cup of tea, but it'll change it. That's what you'll see on most sort of camera systems for marketing, because it's colorful and it looks nice. But for me, I think it's definitely the white black, or the white hot, sorry. Once you enable white hot, you are actually able to use the color scheme. So above 37.5 degrees is obviously in red. As I said before, the temperature calibrator is set to 40 degrees, and therefore that shows that constant red. So we know it's working. So it's a very visual prompt to show it's working. And also you can see I've got a glass of hot water down there. It's reinforced glass from the kettle, so it's not going to hopefully break. But that glass of hot water I'm going to use to quickly trigger the camera shortly. So you can see both items are over that 37 degrees, 37.5 degrees. So visually, it's nice to see within the image. It also lets you see, obviously, the calibration unit is working. And on playback, you can see where the temperature was hottest on the person that they were detected. One thing about thermal imaging is it doesn't work through normal glass. So if you stand behind glass, it won't obviously read through the standard glass. That's why they have germanium generally on the front of a thermal. It's a sort of a rare mineral, really, rather than glass. Okay, so that's by default, these are set to white hot and colored, but again, you can turn that on and off at your pleasure. But I like to turn it on because, again, it's a quick reference to show the calibrator is actually working and at temperature. You've got some other adjustments for the thermal air, but mostly you don't need to touch these settings. These are like personal preferences, really. One thing that we do in the picture overlay, oh, sorry, not the picture overlay, the picture in picture. And one thing I do like to do is not so much picture in picture, although you could have the standard color image there, put it in overlap mode, click save, and then the thermal image will show in the color image. So both within the same channel, and you can sort of move that around at your own pleasure. I don't really like it, but some people do use it. But I'm going to put that back to normal. The most common we see, or what I tell people to adjust, is if I go to camera 2, wait for that to load, you can see actually now I've toggled the mode on and off. It's gone back to its default low res thermal. So you can see how low res that really is. The good thing with our technology is we can do an image fusion. So I can switch it to details overlay, and then you can adjust the ratio and the meterage there. Click save, and then you'll see it'll merge the day-night camera into the thermal to give you a really nice, neat camera image, thermal image. So the thermal image appears much higher res than it actually is because we use that image fusion technique. And now I urge people to do that because I think it's really powerful to see that. But again, personal preference, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. And again, the VCA rule display, we have quite a few people asking to have the OS detect. So if I stood in front of the camera, I'd have a box on my head with a temperature above it to indicate what temperature was detected, the highest point on my face. You can actually change the font size. So I set it to 24, which is the maximum. The default is 12. I think it's a little bit small, left at 12. So I change it to font size 24. The text and the temperature is very big, very easy to see, and again, quite pleasing to look at. I think it enhances the performance of the product, from a visual perspective anyway. And that's where you adjust it, and I click save. Moving on to event, again, we got the standard motion, alarm input, alarm output. Some people like to drive an alarm output on motion, or whether they want to do the temperature, the abnormal temperature, we call it, you can drive an output. So 2 things you need to do. If you want to use the output for anything, click on alarm output, and there are 2 outputs available on this camera. Again, by default, the time schedule is off, so just fill that in for 24/7, presuming you want that. Again, lots of people who try and trigger the abnormal temperature relay output, they don't set the alarm output, the time schedule, so it doesn't actually work. So remember, always set the alarm output schedule, and that goes across our product set actually. And you can also trigger the alarm. So if you want to manually check the third-party system that you're integrating with, or however you're connecting this, that works, click manual alarm, and that will allow that quick interaction and testing for you. And you can actually change normally open or normally closed. On our newer products, especially the higher end ones, you can actually change the state of the relay. Our budget end products, our eco products, cost effective. It's normally open, going, closed on alarm. On our newer products, and especially the high end ones, you can change the relay state, whether it's normally open or normally closed, to suit your application, which is really nice. The other things you can do, flashing light alarm output. So when a mask or abnormal temperature is detected, you can have it flashing or solid, whatever the personal preference of the site is, how long it flashes for, how the frequency of it, so it's high, medium, or low, so how fast the LED flashes, and the brightness. So you can adjust those specific to the site, plus the time scale. The other thing you can do is the audible alarm output. Like I said, this has gone back to that English voice again. So for temperature measurement, temperature is normal, abnormal, please check. How many times the message is repeated, and again, the volume and the time schedule. So most of these are default. It's very simple. This is just a sense check to show that they are all programmed in there, and where to find them if you need to adjust them. You can also adjust the, if you're like me and can't speak any other language than English, I can just about speak English, but if you are clever enough to speak any one of these languages, or your customer demands it, you can change the language mode, save it, and it'll reboot, and then you can just use that. Okay, so, but don't ask me to translate it. So that's where you set those settings, pretty straightforward. And then the only smart event, that, because it's a thermal screening product, the only smart event we can do is the audible detection. So you can connect a microphone in this and set normal or abnormal sound increase, decrease, etc. Again, probably a different video, to be honest. If you use an SD card in the camera, it allows you to record the event snapshots or video to the camera. So if you don't want to add it to an NVR to keep the cost down, or they are added to an NVR, but you want local storage for backup, put an SD card in there, set it for continual or event recording, and Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. You can just do that. Capture, again, same principle. And you can also do enable timing snapshot or enable triggered snapshot. So if you want to do a time-lapse video, if it's in a position that lends itself to making a time-lapse video or something, you can set the parameters there as well. But again, probably not the right product for that, but you can. Storage management, again, you can just add all those details in there. Now, under the temperature screening, sorry, I got a bit of a stuffy nose now. Under the temperature screening setup of the camera itself, you've got two options, camera 1 and camera 2. The brunt of the setup is in camera 1, which is the day-night camera. So we're going to enable color measurement, yes. We're going to enable color temperature, yes. Display temperature info on stream. These are default on. You don't have to, it doesn't affect the performance of the product if you turn them off, but it does, so especially these bottom three here, it doesn't affect the performance of the product in our own product set, but for third-party integration, and you really want that sort of integrated into the stream type, I just enable them all, and you never have any problems if you do need to integrate further down the line. Data refresh interval, I set it to 1 second, it's constantly refreshing. The default is 3, I think now. The unit is obviously degrees C, because we set that earlier on in the menu, and the temperature range is 30 to 45 degrees. Again, it's specifically set up for that temperature screening application, so you can't have those higher and lower temperature range that you would have on a typical Hikvision temperature measurement camera. That was a mouthful. Emissivity value, again, we're looking for human skin, so it's 0.98. The target is a fixed distance or self-adaptation. So I'm going to put a fixed distance. I know what that fixed distance is, where the people come in and stand on my line that I drew. And the distance is 1 meter away from the camera, that line. So you adjust that properly. Don't forget, those distances have to be within the lens size's capability. There's no point buying a 3mm and putting that at 10 meters, because 1, it just won't work. And 2, you'll end up having all sorts of misreads and false positives. So just be mindful. You do have to have the right camera and the right settings within that camera to make this perform how you want it to perform. Once we settle that, then we can move on to camera 2. And like I said, that's an error message, so don't worry about that. Again, people that phone me and say you can't configure any settings on camera 2, that's completely normal. Under temperature screening configuration, though, wait for it to catch up. So we got, again, 2 cameras. So enable face detection. Yes, we do want to, again, most of these are enabled by default to optimize the product and make it very quick to deploy and spend less time configuring it. So enable face detection. Yes, that enables us to, when we see a face, then to do the capture algorithm for the temperature. So yes, you want that, of course. Display temperature. Of course, you want to display the temperature. You know, a temperature screening product without displaying the temperature isn't much use to an operator, in my opinion. So yes, we do. Upload captured face image. Yes, if you want to upload it to a third-party system or to the SD card, etc. Yes. Display face temperature position. Yes. So just tick them all. It's the best way to do it. Most of them are ticked by default anyway. So again, these are parameters that you don't really need to adjust unless you're having performance issues. And then you can speak to us, Hikvision, or whoever the distributor is that you have bought from, hopefully is DVS. But again, you can adjust the maximum pupil distance and minimum and maximum pupil distance. So you can, if it's capturing non-faces, which I haven't seen many of yet because we've optimized the product for that. But if it is, that you can actually tweak the minimum and maximum pupil distance to really fine tune the product to capture that face, the face algorithm, to capture a face and do the temperature algorithm. Generation speed is 5 and sensitivity is 5. Leave them at 5 by default. We can adjust them if you are having issues with the product, but generation speed is how fast the subject moves towards it, like a fast walking pace, up to, and the sensitivity is its most sensitive. Again, if it's capturing stuff that isn't human faces, we can adjust the sensitivity down to about 3, and that should stop that phenomenon. But we have other stuff that we can adjust in the background. And again, you can't adjust the targeting because it's built in or hard coded into the product. Alarm when temperature is 37.5 and 37 degrees pre-alarm. You can adjust that. So if you think that's too low and you want to put it up to whatever temperature you feel is the alarm temperature, it could be 38 or 38.5. You can manually adjust that. By default, that's what we've set out of the box, but it's not fixed in stone. Let's say you can adjust that, but be warned, if you put it too low, you're going to have a lot more alarms. And you have to action them. If you put it too high, you risk the lower end of that scale not being captured potentially. So that's probably the optimum place to start. But again, it is up to you how you do that. And all you have to do here is basically draw the area of capture. So this red box here will define our maximum capture area for the face detection algorithm to work. So we've got the yellow box is the actual detection area where our faces are detected. You can adjust that, and I'll show you the red box in the thermal. So if I change the camera to, this will probably make a little bit more sense. I should have done it the other way around, really. You'll see that blue box there relates to this red box here. So my detection area is not quite the maximum it could be, but again, I've got my black box calibrator in the field of view where I needed to be, top left, top right, and again, sort of up to 20 degrees elevated angle looking up at the camera there, the optimums. The yellow detection area, what you don't want to do is put that black box calibrator inside the detection area. It does cause some confusion with the camera. So always outside of the detection area, that is the recommended installation and setup procedure. So once you finish that, go on to camera 2, and it's really as simple as this. On camera 2, we've set our detection area. Our camera is, our black box calibrator is outside of our detection area because we've adjusted it. Tick the enable black box correction because we are using a black box correction. I can do my distance to from the camera point to the black box calibrator is 1.5 meters. So it's within the parameters of the camera and the lens type you're using. Again, it's important to get these right. Temperature is set to 40. Now on the when you first power the black box calibrator on, set it to 40 degrees, and then subsequently when you turn it on, it will remember that setting. They take sort of 30 minutes to heat up. What we do recommend is when the first time you enable or turn the product on, so the camera and the black box calibrated together, you need to allow sort of 90 minutes really for these to settle down in the environment, stabilize, and start giving you those accurate readings. If you turn them on and expect it to be accurate in 2 minutes, then it will start reading temperatures, but it won't be its most accurate. It needs to warm up, reference that, and become stable in this environment. So we recommend 90 minutes, but at least 30 minutes, please give it at least 30 minutes and before you start walking away. But again, it will start to detect temperatures straight out the box once you've turned it on, okay? Another thing to remember is, so that night is definitely that 90-minute wait time, just get them at the temperature and set it to 40 degrees. Many people are leaving it at 37.5, and then you will have issues with the detection. So enable black box correction, 40 degrees, emissivity is 0.97. We've already set that from the emissivity value, but it is hard coded in. Or it's set, you can change it, but it is in there. If you don't use a black box calibration unit, you can untick this and just use the temperature compensation. Now, again, if you don't use the black box, it is only 0.5 degrees accurate. So we would recommend that you do use that black box to get the accuracy and the stability. And another thing to consider is, you need to install this in an indoor environment or stable. We've had some people who've built big like sort of field tents, and it is a stable environment because they have a door in, door out with a black box calibrator with aircon, etc. in there, and it's outside, but it's in a like a hermetically sealed environment, like a field hospital almost, and they do work in that environment. What you can't do is install this thermal camera outside the front door in the open air and expect it to give you a high degree of accuracy. It just won't give you that degree of accuracy. One, because the black box calibrator won't be fitted, and two, the outdoor environment won't be stable enough, and you'll get too many swings and too many activations, so it'll just annoy you. So indoor and in a stable environment, please. Okay, so if you don't use the black box calibrator, just enable temperature compensation and leave it as auto and auto. There is a way to manually calibrate this. So if you're not using the black box calibrator and you're getting a lot of false alarms, there is in that PDF that I can send you, which I showed you at the beginning. Just pull this up quickly. There is a way to actually manually compensate it. So you have to do it 5 times, note the temperature down, note the difference, and then input it. It's in that document, but you can actually put the manual calibration offset in there. So if it's always reading 0.7 degrees over the actual temperature, you can take the mean average, record it in there, the manual calibration, and it will add that to the temperature, which will give you more accurate reading. But again, use the black box calibrator at that point, because you have to have a handheld accurate thermometer to get the actual temperature to make the manual compensation offset. So at that point, just use the black box calibrator. The price has been reduced on those to sort of encourage people to use them as well. Okay, so pretty much like that, as long as we're done. So the drawer area, the only other important thing is, if I draw the area, click drawer area there, put the blue dot over the calibration unit, make sure it's over there, and click save. That's all you have to do. That just tells the camera in the algorithm where that fixed source of steady 40-degree heat is coming from, so it can use it as its reference. So again, outside the detection area, always there, always visible. It's literally as simple as that. For the face capture, and then with the linkage method, sorry, I just jumped ahead there. Linkage method for camera 1, all day, I'd probably expect most people to leave this default. The linkage method is on abnormal temperature. Do you want it to do flash and alarm, audible warning, upload to FTP memory card, notify surveillance center, which is the push notification to the app on our software, and send email, and then your trigger alarm outputs there, or trigger recording onto the SD card, FTP, etc., etc. So make sure you put the appropriate linkage methods that you want to happen when the camera is triggered, providing you want it to go off. It could just be a camera, the guard sitting within close proximity, hears the noise in the flashing light, and then obviously just goes over and the second line screens this individual or removes him from the building forcefully. I don't know, whatever. What this camera can do now on the latest firmware and the face capture, you shouldn't have to adjust any of these parameters. It's that algorithm to improve the face capture algorithm and then the temperature detection, obviously. But if we're using it with a facial recognition NVR, we can sort of optimize these settings to give a really good image to the recorder and then analyze it, etc. So out of the box, you shouldn't have to. In fact, I can't remember the last time I had to do this for somebody. I play around with it myself, but you shouldn't really have to do much for this. The only thing you should be aware of, this new firmware obviously has the mask detection algorithm built into the camera. And then if the camera sees you with no mask, but it's not enforced on your site, you're going to get an audible warning each time a mask isn't detected. Now, that might not be something that you want to enforce. So under advanced configuration, there's a tick box there for audible warning for no wearing mask linkage. So if I untick that and save, the camera itself won't broadcast the fact audibly that I haven't got a mask on. So it's a nice, easy way of turning that function off in the camera itself if you don't want it. Okay, so I'm going to show you quickly the software. So one of the software packages we offer is this IVMS 4200. We do a specific version with the AI engine in it for the thermal screening solution. So if you're going to use IVMS 4200, you can use a standard version, but I would urge you to use the one that I showed you in that Hikvision Europe portal. It's in there. You can download it. And it basically, I've got both cameras side by side. So I'll just go and stand in front of them first. And you can see it'll say, well, I've got my eyes closed, but it's saying no mask on there because I'm obviously reporting that within the function set, or I used a hot glass of water to report that my body temperature was too hot, and then the red ones are the ones you have to deal with. So I'll quickly demonstrate this. So you can see sort of the temperature hovering around my head there. Now if I walk out the field of view, and I'm going to use a hot glass of water,
Abnormal temperature.
So you can see the temperature, so the temperature and the mass detection if you want it. I am sorry, I'm walking like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. I've got sciatica and a very bad disc problem at the minute, so apologies for that. I don't look the best. But yeah, you can see it reports on there. You can have many cameras monitored by this, and also Hike Central for a centralized estate monitoring, and you can have dedicated people that watch this. So you can see 25 people have gone past it, 3 with abnormal temperature, 25 of those have got no mask, and then normal temperature is 22. But you can see through the color schemes down here. So if I click that, instantly no mask, and I'm also over temperature, and you can, it's very visual, and you can just add the cameras in as you want. Now, this is a simple solution. So you can have the camera and NVR, so an iSeries or the IDS, like I said, camera, NVR and software, camera and software. So there's different versions we can put this together. It really, what works best for you and the customer and the site, and obviously the budget will demand that as well. But again, there is a solution for everybody, and we can sort of help you design that and implement that as needed. So I'm just going to close this down. Again, back to the camera itself now, if I go to local view and go to display rules on camera, yes, just click yes on all this. If I go to live view, you could just use the camera with a web browser. You know, if you really want to give a very deployable, cost-effective system, the same functionality can be seen within the camera itself. So again, start the camera view. Yeah. So again, there is really a solution for everybody. The push notifications, if I just share my screen with you, I'm going to do a screen share for 2 seconds. No, I can't do it because I just got to start this. Give me 2 seconds. And it isn't going to work. That's normally how I do my screen share, but it doesn't want to work, as you can see. But there we go. So I can actually do screen mirroring. Yeah. So if I log into Hike Connect, you can see there, refresh it. Let me make this larger so you're focused on that. You can see there, that's the app. I'm just mirroring my screen. And if I wanted to look at a camera, look at one of the alarms, click on that, and you can see the thermal. You can see how nice and big the writing is. It's indicating where the temperature is hottest, and obviously very simple to do. And if I had playback, if I had an SD card built into the camera or the recorder was sending it, I could click on playback and then obviously see the detail of that video image moving forward. So hopefully that's helped answer some of the questions you may have had. I can't think of anything else that I really wanted to report. The new firmware is absolutely fantastic. And the app, email, software, we've got a solution for everybody. So hopefully you've got a better understanding of what we can do, how we can deploy it, and how to set and configure this up. Okay, so I'm just going to have a quick look now if there's any questions. There isn't any questions that I can see, so that's, I must have done a pretty good job, I'd assume. If you do have any questions or any suggestions, then please email webinar@dvs.co.uk. One of our salespeople can contact you if you need pricing or further information, or if you want any of the information shared here, then please do request that. We're also live on YouTube, so you can reference this video at any time on our YouTube channel. So please like, share, and subscribe as required. Other than that, stay safe. Please stay in touch, and see you next week for another webinar. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.